Hello, educators of Virginia. Welcome to today's episode with Dr. Tina Boogren, where we will explore the importance of educator wellness and uncover intentional strategies for you to use right away. Tina is co-director of Solution Tree's Wellness Solutions for Educators and is an author and associate for Solution Tree and Marzano Resources. She is also the founder of the Self-Care Squad of Badass Educators and drops weekly podcasts on her own channel, Self-Care for Educators with Dr. Tina Boogren. I definitely recommend you check that out. Like, subscribe, whatever streaming platform you use. I'm not going to apologize for any fanboy moments that happened today. I already had my first one when Tina and I first connected on this call, but I'm ecstatic to be able to sit down with Tina. So we are all in for a treat. Tina, welcome. How are you?
Oh, I can't think of a better introduction. Thank you. I am honored to be here. Truly. Thank you so much. Your enthusiasm. See, this is like one of my big things is that we know emotions are contagious, right? So thank you. I feel better already.
That's awesome. So our listeners have come accustomed to me not letting our guests off the hook with, kind of some surface level emotions or talking about feelings. So our listeners know that when I ask how you are, I really want to know, and I really mean it. And so when you think about all the things right now, how are you showing up in this space in this moment?
I love that question so much. And I love that you want it to be answered honestly, right? It forced me to pause for a second because my gut response, like all of us, oh, I'm great. Everything's great. And it is. And so my honest answer is I feel fantastic today because I'm at home. So the majority of my job, which is fantastic, I travel for work, right? I get to work with educators all over, which I absolutely love. But in living one of my core values of integrity, I have to walk my talk. And so as much as I love doing those workshops, I need time at home. And I've been way more intentional in my calendar this year of not saying yes to everything and being home. So I am home. I am in Denver. It was 70 degrees yesterday. We're going to snow today. Such is spring in Denver. I've got tickets for Hamilton tomorrow night. I've got book club with girlfriends tonight. So I am good.
That sounds amazing. And it sounds like you are legitimately good, not just that, oh, I'm fine, everything's fine, we're all fine. So no, I appreciate that. I too am showing up in a great space. We're having the fluctuations of spring, not as intense as it probably is in Denver, but it feels great outside. It is sunny. I'm at home too. So I'm feeling I'm feeling great. And plus I'm sitting down recording a podcast with you. So of course I'm showing up well as well. So hopefully that energy will be able to feed off of each other for the next maybe 30 minutes as we get this podcast episode on waxed. And so we're here to talk about self-care and wellness. And that was a great wellness check-in for both of us. And particularly for educators, it has gained noticeable traction in the past 18 to 24 months. I don't know if we ever even talked about educator wellness before COVID hit, and now it's all that we can really talk about. So tell us why it matters. Tell us why the work of wellness is so important, and why has it taken us so long to realize just how much it matters?
I am certain that everyone listening to this podcast knows how much it matters. It's like the rest of the world. And then I don't know, things exploded. So my very first self-care book was, I think that the copyright was, I should know the answer to this. That's why I'm giggling. I want to say 2018, pre-COVID for sure. And I think because time means nothing anymore, it's either the before times or the after. So it was in the before times that it came out. And I've been passionate about this. Gosh, I mean, the journey, I burned out myself. I work with so many educators who are burned out. When I did my dissertation, I studied the phenomenology of highly effective teachers. And one of the things that came out of that I didn't expect, but I should have, was that in the small study I did in my dissertation, but the most effective teachers, most reflective teachers, it's to the detriment of something in their own lives. And the worrisome part is we're going to lose them. And those are the teachers that have the biggest gains in student achievement. So it's been on my mind for a long time. And all these little things just kept popping up of little nudges, if you will, these little glimmers of this is so important. And I've known forever. I started out I still do work for Dr. Marzano, incredible. And I've heard him say this so many times, it's ingrained in my brain. The absolute most direct correlation to student achievement is the teacher in the classroom. And for a long time, we took that to focus on instructional strategies, which is fantastic. But I had this aha moment of like, wait, it's the teacher, the human being. And I don't care how great the strategy is. Bob Marzano, John Hattie can hand it to us on a silver platter and say the effect size of this is not to be missed. But if the person providing that strategy is totally depleted and worn out, it doesn't matter how good the strategy is.
Yeah.
So it's been this like overwhelming need to start having this conversation. And quite honestly, in 2018, it was hard to have the conversation. People would hire me for professional development and they'd be like, oh yeah, I mean, you mention the self-care stuff, but really we got to talk about instruction. Like our grant, our everything has to be tied to achievement. And I get it, but I kept banging on the door saying, no, this does tie to student achievement. Whether or not that teacher is sleeping, actually, I can draw a line to student achievement. Then COVID happened. And I mean, gosh, talk about asking educators to do things that it's just unbelievable. And they did it. That's the part that just astonishes me. They did it. And boy, if we learned a lot, but one of the big things I think we learned is we've got to learn how to take care of the adults. I'm so in tune with the social emotional learning for students, but where I think we goofed a little bit is we jumped to students and forgot the adults. Yeah. An unregulated adult cannot take care of a student. So I'm on a mission. My tagline is I'm a fierce advocate for educators. And I mean like the person themselves.
Yeah, no, I think there's so much in there to unpack, and I appreciate that. I think the realm that I want to live in, just for a second, if I can follow up, is a lot of school divisions around the country are looking at closing some pay gaps.
Yes.
Let's put some money because we think our educators might not be coming to the profession or might be leaving the profession because of pay. That's a factor, right? Yep. I mean, we can't have our educators, with a side hustle all school year long, because that also is a contributing factor. But what do you think is the role of the leader in that? And so I digest everything you've got going on out there, and I can't help but put my leader cap on and say, what is my responsibility and what is my role in supporting the adults in my school or the adults in my school division to make sure that those outcomes that I want are supported. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so much. So I know it keeps me up at night, like the whole recruiting new teachers. Like here's what I always say, we're not making the profession very sexy right now. Like who wants to join us? Like, wow. Entire colleges of ed are closing. Like, so we have a major recruitment and retention. We always have, but I think it's just, we don't even know the ramifications of COVID yet. So yes, there are some systemic things that need to change. Pay, right? Working conditions. There's some big pieces, and we need to continue to fight that fight. What I'm about are the day-to-day things of, I'm convinced that if we prioritize wellness, not to the detriment of students. We are not lowering expectations for students at all, but figuring out how do we do this? How do we kind of change the narrative of the teacher as martyr? I mean, that's what it's been. We say things like give 110%, which first of all, that's impossible.
Right.
Second of all, why are we asking teachers to do that? Like, that's just, there's got to be a balance in there. And yes, it starts with leaders. And I go back to leaders. Oh my gosh, talk about a group that needs wellness. I mean, I worry about teachers in the anyone directly correlated, that direct line to students, teachers, paraprofessionals, all of them. And then I worry significantly about the leaders supporting those people. I can't tell you how many workshops I've done in these last few years that the leader calls and says, my people are dying on the vine, we need your help, right? But when I start asking them questions, they're falling apart worse than anyone else. And that modeling piece, like, we have got to, I know it's so trite now, but it is so true. We have got to secure our own oxygen mask before assisting others. So the greatest thing that I think a leader can do is walk this path beside their teachers. Like, when I come in, when I do these workshops, when we have these conversations, having leaders in the room as part of that conversation and modeling it and being vulnerable and saying, here's what I'm working on. You guys, I am going to leave work by whatever time, I'm committed, hold me to that, where we really have that loving accountability. Like, it's the same idea of if we, leaders thinking about their school or their multiple schools, like, when we're truly functioning as a PLC, as a professional learning community, the advantages of that for students. And I think that same model, the advantages of that in terms of wellness, like, when Tim Canold and I, through our vision of the wellness solutions for educators, I mean, we envision a world truly where teachers and leaders not only write professional learning goals for student achievement, but they write their own wellness goal. And we figure out ways to support that. I think, gosh, if we can do that, we're much more likely to stay in the profession. The burnout goes down. Like, we know burnout is a real thing. The World Health Organization has identified this as a major factor for people leaving. And I think that word has come up so much over these last 2 years. We're burning people out. So how do we start to kind of find even footing again?
Yeah, and I mean, I just read something the other day. It's that, the phrase "the Great Resignation"
Yes.
was, what it's referred to, and reading up on capital T trauma and lowercase t
Yes.
trauma and this collective trauma that we're all just kind of in this washing machine. And so I want to, really what you said was, I love what you said, walk the path beside their teachers and leaders being in the room with their people, being vulnerable. I think that there is something to be said. We talk about a leader who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, really modeling the expected behavior. So if I expect you to take care of yourself, I better be sure to be taking care of myself.
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
so when we look at that, and Ed Week just recently released its market brief and identified the key areas where next fiscal year, which is, for
Yes.
us 22-23, where the budgets are going to be focused, social emotional learning
Yeah.
is on the top of that list. I don't know if it was very top or number two, but it's up there as a key focus area. But we can't separate, just as you said, the adults from the students. We need to care for all of our people and needing support. So what is your sense around what that might look like
Yeah.
as we pour money into this
Yeah.
idea of social emotional well-being, mental health, and educator wellness, which is where your niche is? What do you see that looking like?
Yeah, we do. We need, I mean, of course, our students need it without a doubt. Like, I'm so grateful that we're prioritizing this. And I think that we can do both together, the students and the adults. So the way that I have been approaching this, so I co-authored the book, Motivating and Inspiring Students, with Dr. Marzano, Daryl Scott, Ming-Lee Newcomb, where we used Maslow's hierarchy to think about social emotional learning for students. And the story I always tell is, I'm giggling because when we were writing that book was when I burned out. Like, the universe just does crazy things, right? So I was traveling too much. I was just at my wit's end, to put it very mildly. And I'm trying to write this book. And I was like, oh my God, how can I possibly write a book on motivating and inspiring students when I am not inspired myself? And the aha, as I dug into my job as a practitioner, was to take the research and what does this look like for students? And I kept thinking, we can't continue to ask teachers to do this for students if we're not doing this for the teachers. I mean, the teachers that I work with, like my heart, they're just exhausted.
Yeah.
So, and then I put the mirror up and I was like, oh, wait, the same is true for me. So I love taking the framework of Maslow's hierarchy and thinking of it as having two sides. So we can have the joint conversation that when we think about particularly the first four levels of Maslow, physiological needs, safety, belonging, and esteem. As we dig into that and think about what that means for students, let's also remember the other side of that pyramid. And that's exactly what we need for adults. We need, when we think about our physiological needs, that's our physical wellness, making sure we're going to bed and we're drinking the stupid water and we're moving our bodies, like those core things, because and that's actually the area that I say to start with, because when we feel better, we show up differently. And I don't mean going on a dumb diet or perfection. I just mean like the most basic level of self-care, going to bed, allowing ourselves to eat lunch, like those core pieces. And so when we think through the lens of both, what an incredible thing. And again, it's like walking beside students as we're thinking about our students' needs. How are we modeling that? Students are getting modeling out in the world, they're getting modeling at home, and they're getting modeling from us. So what does that look like? Another little piece to add here is that many of our conversations lately this year have been around outrageous student behavior, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And while I would say that there's a whole list of reasons why, one of the big things is that, and I say this in jest, but I mean it, no wonder student behavior is out of control, adult behavior is out of control.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mean teachers, I mean the world. Have you been to an airport lately? Or the example I keep giving, this just blows my mind. A few weeks ago here in Denver, the Children's Museum closed down for 1 week. Like they stopped profits, right? Put a sign on their door. It was due to the adult behavior. It was mad about masks, whatever it was. And basically the sign was like, adults, go home and figure yourselves out. And when you are ready to behave, come back. Like it closed for a week. And my head was like, oh my gosh, adults don't go to a children's museum without a child.
Right.
So
right.
children are watching this behavior. So it doesn't fix anything, but it makes perfect sense to me. And I trace back that bad adult behavior to level 2 of Maslow's safety. In order to feel safe, we need order, predictability, and fairness. And that's really what COVID blew up. So, and level 2 safety is attached to attention. In other words, if we don't feel safe, we can't even pay attention. And this is true for students and adults. So when we think about social emotional learning for students, I think that we don't have to do, and for adults, it doesn't have to be one over here and one over here. I think that we can approach this together. And every conversation we have of like, here's, regulating strategies that we can use for students. Let's practice them ourselves, adults, so that we're using them ourselves in the classroom.
Yeah, I think I love that concept of, just the idea of modeling the expected behavior, because everyone is watching. So at every level, you're not just doing it for yourself, like do good for you, but do good for others as well, because they need to see what does it mean to, I love that. The basic getting your sleep, drinking the stupid water, like what is, I mean, earlier this morning, I think one of your episodes from, I think it was last year, was the morning routine. And like a lot of that sticks with me, because I mean, I'm the folks who know me know I'm fairly regimented in my morning routine. If you take me off of it, I'm not even the same human being. But that's, I mean, it's deeper than habit. It's more lifestyle. And so that is something for me that throughout the years, and even through this madness over the past 2 years, I've refused to give up on is my morning routine of waking up super early and getting an hour of an awesome workout before I even check any notifications on my phone. So
what a game changer. I'm applauding you. That is huge. That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to shift. I mean, the time is flying, no surprise for me, but I want to shift to some self-care strategies. And I've speaking of your podcast, I've truly enjoyed listening to it. Self-care for educators with Dr. Tina Boogren, of course. I'm not quite sure if it's because they are less than 10 minutes, every single one
Yeah.
of them. If there are bite-sized strategies that you share that we can do right away. The thank you period episode was I'll
Yes.
just say thank you. Stop trying to get into a competition. So that or really for me as a listener, the relationship I feel like I've developed from you. We officially met today, but I've
Yeah.
already developed a relationship with you as a listener to your podcast. But maybe it's all three. We've got about 10 minutes left to help educators who are either ready to start the work of
Yeah.
healing or who are already engaged and looking to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So, what are some immediate next steps that you recommend for both of those
Yeah.
types of people?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. It's so the podcast started during the pandemic and in my own mind, I really I don't think anyone listens. I mean, I see the numbers, but I'm always like, it's just me having a conversation with myself. So I thank you. It always surprises me when people are like, oh, I know I'm like, oh, really? Really? Like, so thank you. Oh man. So yes, so many small, I always say the smaller the strategy, the better. I anyone that's heard me talk knows that I tout James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. That was a game-changing book for me and for so many people that I know. It's always cute when you find other people that have read the book because they're always like, oh my God, yes. They just instantaneously want to start talking about it. And my biggest there's a ton of takeaways, but my biggest takeaway from that book is his idea of aiming to get just 1% better. Because I think I'm not alone in that what most of us do is we wait until things get bad and we say something like, well, starting Monday. How many times I've said starting Monday or January 1st or when the school year gets done or when my kids get older, when I retire. And then we think there's something magical about Monday where our lives will change and nothing has actually changed. We've just decided that rather than getting 1% better, we try to get 98% better. Like, I'm going to work out every day for an hour. I'm going to go to bed before 10 o'clock. I'm never eating sugar again. And we white knuckle our way through it. And the truth is, decision fatigue, which is such a real thing for educators, the first thing that flies out the window when decision fatigue sets in is willpower. So most of us are relying on willpower to make change, where instead 1% better. And that's the whole idea behind the bite-sized podcast. Here's a teeny tiny little thing to do. And when people say, I don't know where to start, I always recommend start with physical wellness or our physiological needs, which I boil down into our food, our movement, and our sleep. So just thinking about, and I always say, when we are quiet and listen in our own minds, we know what area we really need to start with. And again, it's not perfection. It's not going on a diet. It's just like, am I really taking care of myself? And for me, it's usually things get out of whack when I don't get enough sleep. So, and sleep is such a domino effect for the others. If I don't get enough sleep, I just want caffeine and sugar, and then I don't want to work out, but then I'm all wired and tired, all of it. So like, I always go back and double down on sleep. For some people, the 1% is drinking the stupid water. It's such a tiny little thing that we can do. And you don't even have to give anything up. Like, I'm never giving my coffee up, but I have to have the water before I have it. So that has been, so many people start right there. And the coolest part of that is it's such a small thing to do because it's just building up over time. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh, I feel better. My headaches went away. I have more energy. All I did was drink more water. And once you get that positive momentum, then it's easier to say, okay, what next? What can I do next? And maybe it's moving your body, like just going for a walk. I think when we change the mentality of exercise as a form of punishment for something we ate or something that we feel like, all our friends do CrossFit, so we should do CrossFit. But if you hate CrossFit, no, like it should be something you look forward to. I remind folks to think about, what did you like as a child? Like, did you like to go for a bike ride? Just go for a bike ride, and remove the kind of, I don't know, that whole story in our head around it of just moving our body to, I always say to think of it as a way to just move stress out of your body, like to just start there. So those small pieces, I would say. And then if you feel like you've got that physical wellness, then thinking about moving up, what we would say in Tim and I's book, Educator Wellness, we'd move into mental wellness. And for us, the idea of mental wellness really boils down to Are we thoughtful about the decisions that we are making? How do we reduce the number of decisions? How do we find that elusive balance, which I don't think we can ever be fully balanced, but how do we balance the high energy portions of our day with kind of low quiet times? And part of mental wellness is also then our own kind of self-compassion and efficacy, our belief in ourselves.
Mm.
So, and from there, then we move into emotional wellness and then social wellness. But if we just kind of chip away at these small pieces, boy, once we start to feel better, we just show up differently. And I think part of sometimes it's just the getting started that's so stinking hard. And that idea of just 1%, what does 1% better look like today? And the math, James Clear talks about this. The math tells us that if we get 1% better every day for a year, we're 37 times better. But what I love in the book, he goes on to say, but we're not going to get 1% better every day. We've got vacation and tired and whatever. Even if you get just 1% better and you take 5 weeks off, you're still 10 times better than you are now at the end of the year. So removing that notion of making these big, huge sweeping changes, and instead just think, how can I show up for myself 1% better today?
Yeah, no, and I imagine, and I haven't read the book. My wife actually has the book, and
Oh,
she
nice.
I don't know if she's finished yet, or if I need to snag that copy from her to read. But I imagine with a lot of things, the hardest percent is the first percent, and you
Yes.
kind of mentioned it. You know, if you nail your sleep, or you nail the drinking the stupid water, and you notice that you feel that 1% better, then the next step is a little bit easier. It's just like
Yeah.
movement. The hardest thing
Yep.
is to get out the door.
Yes.
Once you're out the
You
door, you're
never
fine.
regret it, right? What's the thing? You never regret it, but you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
No, I
Yep.
appreciate that. Tina, we are out of time. I can't believe that 30 minutes has flown by this quickly. I cannot thank you enough. And I want to thank you on behalf of all educators who are tuning in and listening. Just thank you. And we, as the Virginia affiliate of ASCD, want to give you an opportunity to share with the community how they can connect with you and become part of your wellness network.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh. And a huge thank you to everyone listening. Like I said, I am your biggest fan. Like my job is taking care of the adults. So thank you. The easiest way, couple of easy things. Number one, the podcast, which is available wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can find it if you just go to selfcareforeducators.com. That'll link you right to the podcast. And then my happy place is my Facebook group, which is just Self-Care for Educators. That's what I call my badass self-care squad. And I laugh because my niece was like, Facebook is for old people. And I said, yep, it sure is. And I am an old person. So that is where you can find me. That group now has over 15,000 members. And
Oh
it
my
is,
goodness.
I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. And I hate to even say this out loud, but I haven't had to block anyone. Like, it is the kindest group of
Yes.
educators that, I mean, I just am in the background. It's educators cheering for other educators and sharing ideas. So that to me is like, oh I know social media can be a dumpster fire, but that is like my happy place for sure. So that, and then if you just go, I'm on, Solution Tree, Amazon Resources. I've got a ton of upcoming workshops. So in fact, Tim Kanold and I are doing two and a half day events on educator wellness. So one is in Plano, Texas, and one is here in Colorado, right outside of Denver. There's information on the Solution Tree website. And then I have other workshops on instruction and coaching. I'm doing a 2-day self-care workshop in Minneapolis coming up in April, I believe. So there's just a ton of ways that we could meet each other in person, which make me happy. So those are the big pieces.
That is awesome. You heard it. You heard it here. Plenty of places to connect with Tina, and plenty of resources that are out there to help you take the next steps towards your wellness. Thank you once again, Tina, for joining us. I am grateful, and my heart my heart is full. So
Oh, mine
thank
too.
you.
Thank you.